On my last video about how to go off-grid, I discussed finances and how to get away with minimal finances. Well, a lot of you might be thinking that's all just silly because nobody can live their life making a few $100 a month. So to that, I say, what is the purpose of money? Financial needs really can be broken down to this: what you need for your monthly budget or annual budget, and some savings for emergencies, and what will you do when you're old and not as physically capable as you might be now. Retirement. Those three things summarize the entire need of money. What money is not is for security, to impress others, or to answer your problems. Trust me, if you throw money at your problems, it's just going to go away and the problems are going to multiply. So your annual budget. So going back to the needs. Annual budget, emergencies, and some type of retirement. An annual budget is made up of your needs and wants. For instance, for me, my property taxes I put those in the need category because I want to keep my property. So I need to pay my taxes for my long-term plan. I estimate roughly $200 a year just for coffee and creamer. I don't need coffee. I put that in my want category. But I've decided I really enjoy it. And I use it to trick myself to get out of bed. My favorite part of the day is sitting by the firewood. My favorite part of the day is sitting by the wood stove and drinking coffee. And it doesn't take long to prepare it, so it kind of gets me out of bed. So to me, the needs and the wants are up to you of what you want in your life. I don't have a whole lot of wants that I pay for, that I keep in my budget. Savings for surprises. So to me, the biggest one is vehicles. You never know when you're going to get charged $1,000 for a repair that you can't do yourself. So there could be medical emergencies, vet emergencies. So it's good to have a few $1,000 or whatever your needs are to have that on hand. Now, that's not too difficult to do once you get out of debt. But along with savings, I put retirement as well. There's going to come a time, a good chance, where I won't be as physically able as I am now, and you're going to want a place in life where you can make an income and have a lot more time to just sit around and not have to do a whole lot. Also, when you're older, it's not really smart to take a lot of physical risks. Even if you can do it, you probably shouldn't. So for me, for instance, I've got my property, and that's part of my long-term goal. Whether I had to sell it and do something else, property will always, in the long run, go up in value. They're not making more of it, and we're getting more people, so it's more scarce of a commodity. Or I can also, if I've got some savings set up, for fencing materials and for stalls for horses, I could set up a pretty decent boarding facility and have somebody hired to do most of the work for me. And that would be a pretty decent income. So my property is my retirement plan. I think if you start applying yourself now, you can develop some type of an income that after you do it a long time, you can figure out a way to hire somebody and make residual income. So if you watched my previous financing video, I gave a practical way that you can live off of a few $100 a month. So for this purpose, we're going to say 400 plus 300 for savings, so that's 700. To put that in perspective, if I didn't have my horse property, which is particularly a significant part of my budget, so if it was just more like a normal person, my budget annually with a vehicle is down to about $300 a month. And then on top of that, if I wanted to add savings, that'd be $600. But for this illustration, let's say $400 a month for living and $300 a month that you're going to put away for savings. So what's some potential income? Well, you could look in two different ways. One would be getting a job. The other would be self-employed. And by a job, that's not a bad way to go. Puts all the worry on somebody else, and you just have to be reliable and show up. But the key is to make $700 a month, you only got to show up 4 days a month. And now keep in mind, when you're budgeting annually, you could also say your work 4 days a month, that's 48 days, times 12. So you could say instead work 2 months and have 10 months off. Or you could say 4 days a month or 1 day a week. However you want to look at it, just for the sake of an idea, an example, we're going to say 4 days a month. So you could find somebody that just needs some reliable person that they can call up and say, hey, I need help today, and you're that guy. And a lot of times, if you're willing to be flexible like that, you can get paid a little more. I think $200 is pretty worth it. Expectation, if somebody's not willing to pay you $200, then how else are they gonna not value your time? So one thing that I have pondered is like a tree cutting service. So if they need somebody to run their chipper someday, you're available, you go do it. The benefit of that is now you're in good with a tree service, and you can pick up firewood when you're done working. So that could be double value right there. Another example, I know a guy who owns a winery, and I've always thought, wouldn't it be cool to just do that once a week, pouring wine? I think that would be a fun job. I like hospitality, and I like wineries. So that would be kind of a cool way to still get in and be social in town with a relaxed job, and make your budget pretty well. So that's just jobs. Whatever you like to do, if you have a skill, if you know anybody, but you don't even have to be skilled. Like I said, just being a laborer. Get a cleanup job on a construction crew. Maybe there's a home building company that would like to have a guy show up and clean the job site once a week. Now, self-employed, as I mentioned in my previous video, is also excellent, because when you only need to make $700 a month, suddenly things that are more labor intensive or things that you enjoy doing become more practical as an income. A few examples there. Well, I said enjoy doing, but handyman. It's not easy. It's not difficult at all to pick up a $700 job in construction when you're self-employed. So you could do one job a month, or like I said, bust hard for a couple months, and then you've got money the rest of the year. If you got a truck and a trailer, you can haul stuff. Just make yourself available. Of course, then insurance gets involved if you want to go that route. So that could be less practical. Firewood, that one's really labor intensive. I've done the math oftentimes. $250 a cord, and you got to make 700. That's roughly 3 cords, maybe a little more to compensate for fuel and repairs to the vehicle. So that's 36 cords a year. But on the other hand, you can go and live in the woods for 3 months cutting wood. Of course, then you're also dealing with permits. So there can be obstacles to some of this. But again, if you live near a big town, there's a lot of tree cutting services that would probably be glad to give you their firewood that they need to haul off. And then you can get maple and oak and sell that. And that would cut down a whole lot of labor. And you could also sell in rounds, and that cuts down labor. So the point is, it becomes feasible. It's something you can do with a pretty low startup cost and get started. If you enjoy doing crafts or artwork, if you like to knit, if you're good at making things, with the internet these days and things like Etsy, you've got a worldwide market pretty much. And suddenly, making a living being an artist is actually practical. You can buy and sell furniture. These days, there is a huge need for slaughter trucks. That's a little bit more of a startup cost, but you're going to be in high demand. Blacksmithing. If you've always wanted to learn how to blacksmith, I know a guy who makes $500 per knife. Pretty sweet knives. They're historical Bowie knives, but you could do, and he's got a huge market on those. So the point is, you don't have to do any of these examples. It's just to get your mind working and recognize that there's so many options when you limit your lifestyle, when you simplify it, and you really understand that life isn't for money. Money is for life. So you just figure out what you need to live and take control of it, rather than in town, they want you constantly thinking that you need more. That's just how our society is designed, where capitalism has taken us. That's not an anti-capitalism statement. That's just where we're at now. There's constant demands and reminders of telling you need more, so that everybody will keep producing, and all these corporations have plenty of gerbils to spin in their wheels for them. So like I say, the contrary is taking control of your life, understanding all the things that you need and actually want, and that you don't need and don't want, and finding an alternative way to live. Cuts out huge budget expenses. So if you have any ideas and are curious, if you're not quite really getting your head around it and you want me to give you an example, just tell me something that you've thought about that you would just love to make a living at. And I'll give you an example in the comments. If you comment, I'll give an illustration of what I mean, so that to kind of help keep fleshing this idea out. When I was outside, I forgot to mention that all of those examples I gave were intentionally not requiring your own property. So I wanted to give a whole lot of examples that you don't have to get into homesteading in order to live a simple lifestyle. And once you have your own property, then there's tons of opportunities in that route as well. But the examples I gave were all off property or in such a minimal space that you don't need like a special property. You can just get an inexpensive place to set up your alternative home and live your life. So forgot to add that. Oh, and also, if you want a video on how to cultivate your own yeast from dried fruit and make donuts, let me know in the comments. So I'm glad people are enjoying this series. Next, I'll probably talk about housing, and I'll just keep pumping these out probably once a week. And leave your comments down there. Share it with your friends if you know anybody who would find this stuff interesting. For now, I am over on the wild side. I love my crew. Oh, there's one. There's a couple more dogs around here somewhere.